welcome.
I'm Matt Green. I'm a grateful alcoholic. I'd like to thank you all for having me here. And, Greg called me the first time and asked me if I'd come do this. And then, Brian, Brian's been absolutely awesome. He did. Sometimes I call you and ask you if you'll come, and you say okay, and we'll be in touch. And then, a couple of days before the conference, do you have your plane ticket now? And, Brian has been really good, and he does love to talk, though. I'll guarantee you that. It's absolutely been awesome. No, I don't think we ever had a phone call in less than 10 minutes, and sometimes I know we talked over 30 minutes, 2 or 3 times, and getting to hear about you guys and your Alcoholics Anonymous and your commitment to Alcoholics Anonymous here impressed me, what you guys do, and hearing about his family, and his wife doesn't want anybody to know, but she's 2 months pregnant again, and so. Brian kind of let that slip, and so what you hear here, what you see here, let it stay here. So, and you know what? When that thunder first started, did you notice it didn't do it all the way through the countdown until we got to the newcomers? That was that. And welcome, man. One day, no matter what I say up here, probably the best thing I can tell you with one day is you can't get a better sobriety date than the one you have. I tried to get a better sobriety date for a long time, and it got way worse. Joe's been an absolute awesome host. The first day I got here, he drove me all around you guys' town, and most of you probably don't know, but I'm blind, and but so it was really cool, because a lot of times they'll pick me up and they'll drive me around their towns and they don't say nothing. We just drive. It's like 3 hours later they're dropping me off at the hotel. I said, man, that was awesome, And then they're trying to show me the pictures of their kids as I'm getting out of the car. And Joe, he told me everything that we went by, and so it made it like, it was real and stuff, and it was unbelievable how, you see the race on TV, that Indianapolis 500, but you drive around, it's like, damn, that sucker's huge. And I was trying to tell one of my guys I sponsor, a bunch of them called since I've been here, about how big it was, and he goes, yeah, like our fairground. I go, shit. But my sobriety date's January 26, 1987. For you that are new, so you don't miss the rest of the meeting, I'm 22 years sober. I don't know if you're like, because I do that because when I was new, they'd throw out, these dates, and then they'd say they got sober at this time, so I got to figure out how old they are, and the next thing I know, we're saying the Lord's Prayer, and I miss the whole rest of the damn meeting, So you don't have to add that up. I'm 56 years old. I know I don't look that old. I've had a lot of plastic surgery. They spent over $1 million on me, and over 100 million, and no parts are bionic or nothing. I have 3 children, 4 grandchildren. I've been married, divorced 8 times. That proves it's not my fault. I keep trying, So yeah, much I try. I was married to my first 4 women without ever getting a divorce, and they tended to bicker a little bit, but and I was thinking, that God, that you guys you've had awesome speakers, and I was telling Stevie, because he was talking about just being an average drunk, and we talked about that for a while. That that because a lot of people, when they hear me, they say, "Man, I must not be alcoholic." I definitely wasn't nowhere that stupid, And it's not a requirement that you be that stupid like me and go out. Because I'll guarantee you, one thing I know for a fact, that if God's not, I found a loving, caring, forgiving God here, and if He's not done with you, you're not going to die. I'm living proof of it. I'm missing so many body parts, but I can't die. God had something for me to do, and I've had everything transplanted, and hardly nothing's real on me anymore, and I got tons of metal in me, and that's what got me to work. Just says I was tired of missing body parts, But I want to talk about Shelley too. You guys, think must be nice for me to be up here and be the Saturday night big shot speaker, right? You guys don't have no big shot speakers in Indianapolis. I had the privilege of coming over. When Joe dropped me off at the hotel Thursday night, he said, "I'll be back to get you at 8:30 in the morning." I think it was 8:30, something like that. And okay, I don't know what's going on. So he picks me up, and we come over here, and they put me to work. So if you've been bitching about how the chairs were lined up, I set most of those up. And check Shelley out, though, man. I think there was 3 of us over by this door over here. We'd already been there a couple hours just banging ass, putting tables and chairs up, and most of it was already done. I think we were up to the banner then. And we're standing over the door just talking for a couple minutes, and she's way over here, and she hollers, "I didn't tell you guys to take a break." And she goes, "And that includes you too, Matt." And I'm going, damn, you guys are tough. Lack of respect in Indianapolis, man. And then we get all done here, and I think, well, that's it, we're going to go. Shit, no, Joe takes me over to where the dinner was last time. We set up over there, too. After we left where the dinner was, where Bill did an awesome job last night, I asked Joe, "Hey, where are we going now?" He goes, "Why don't we drop you off at the hotel for a couple hours now?" That's great. But it's been an absolute blast here, and it's been awesome talking to you guys. If you are new, I pray to God that you don't judge your alcoholism by mine, because you'll probably die. And I'll guarantee you'll put yourself through tons and tons of insanity. I waited a long time, like a lot of people, before I started drinking. It was the summer before the 4th grade. And it wasn't, our book talks about most of us cross over that invisible line that, if there was any given time, we might have been able to quit and stop the illness from progressing. In my case, wasn't that true like that? I started on this side. I started with hot Thunderbird wine. I don't even know if you guys have that crap out here. I'll guarantee it's never seen a grape ever in its life. Back then, I think it sold for like 11 cents a quart or something like that. And I don't even think it was really legal. We got this toxic waste site. In California, we got everything, Everybody, "Oh, you're from California?" I go, "Yeah, that's where all the land of the fruits and nuts live out there." But we got this toxic west side out in Kettleman Hills, and I think that's probably where they got that Thunderbird and just added a little bit of red coloring to it and sold it, But when you're in the 4th grade, you can't be real picky about what you get to drink, and especially if you're going to drink on daily. And you know what? Nobody told me that you need to guzzle, and I don't know, that just came naturally for me. I would drink every day after school that first 3 or 4 days. I would just get through school, and I'd come home and guzzle wine, that Thunderbird wine, that hot Thunderbird wine, and it made the madness inside me go away. You know what? It was still there, but it was okay. I was shy, I was quiet. My parents had got divorced. I felt abandoned. All that crap that we don't. Other people go through what we feel, but they just accept it and move on. We got to drag that shit up for the end of time, complaining, about what our parents did to us, and, as they're putting us in the grave, we're still bitching about what they did to us at 3 years old, still trying to get in touch with that inner child crap, and I remember coming home from school, I'd cry coming home from school every day. Those kids would pick on me, and I grew up in this little tiny town, and they rode horses, and I love horses, but I'm a big city guy. I need action going on even as a kid. And I hated living in this little tiny town, there wasn't nothing to do. The biggest fun was to go out and steal watermelons or something, and that just didn't interest me, riding motorcycles interested me, and fighting and getting in trouble. And I didn't have no problem getting in trouble, but I just hated growing up in this little tiny town, and I was shy, and I couldn't fight, and I had real bleach blonde hair and freckles everywhere, and the kids would ask me, like, did I run into the screen door and get all those freckles? And I hated it. But after 3 or 4 days of drinking after school, I thought, what, this worked so good, I wonder what it would do before school. And so I drank that hot Thunderbird wine before I went to school, and first 4 kids that picked on me, I whipped all their asses. And I instantly became the tough guy at school. And man, that started this other madness that I strive to be on top of the game all the time. And to try to hide how you're feeling so nobody will find out that you're really afraid inside. Fear ruled my life. But with enough alcohol in those beginning days, I could make that madness go down, and it didn't matter. And I chased it. The book says we drank essentially for the effect produced by alcohol. And I'll tell you, if you were drinking for the taste of it, you're probably in the wrong room. Because that taste, especially Thunderbird wine. Steve talked about that Strawberry Hill, didn't you? I hated that. I don't like sweet stuff. When I was drinking in that Strawberry Hill and, what was it, Boone Farm and Annie Green Springs or Ripple, and that stuff was way too sweet for me. That was for the sissy drinkers. Us tough guys had to drink straight booze, like tequila and whiskey, and it tasted way nastier, but you were more macho drinking straight out of the fits like that. Especially if you can go down to Mexico and get that mezcal with a worm in the bottom of it. And that was a big deal to drink all that mezcal and get to the worm. You never remembered eating the worm, but it worked good, though. I loved everything about drinking. It made me be who I was afraid to be. I've been talking to so many people. I forget who I was telling. I think it was Brian. He goes, don't say it anymore. He goes, I want to hear the story. Tonight it's like, man, you'd have to listen to all my friggin' tapes to get all this. When I drink, on a daily basis, I come up with some really stupid ideas to do. And I could go on the rest of the night telling you all the stupid places and all the institutions I got locked up in. And, when I was new, I heard someone say they were allergic to alcohol, and when they drank, they broke out in spots. And I thought, that sounded right. When I drank, I broke out in jails and institutions all over the country, like Nevada and Mexico. And I remember when I went to jail, the first time I went to Hawaii, I was there 2 days before I went to jail. And I thought, at least I'm going to jail in a higher class neighborhood, The rubber room's still the same, but I don't know what it is. I don't like drinking at home. Someone talked about those 20, 30 questions, whatever it is. One of them is, do you ever drink alone? And the only time I ever drank alone, if I was on the way to the bar and nobody was with me. You see, because a wife can't go, what if you meet number 6 there, or number 7, or whatever, You can't be taking a wife along and slowing that process down, I mean, I would just, somehow I get married and I mean, I don't remember most of them. They must have took advantage of me and being drunk in the bar and say, let's go get married. And I must say, okay. And because I come to and they show me a wedding certificate. I mean, I've been married in the Reno Hearted Chapel 5 times. I should have got a group discount there, I moved away from home the night before I turned 13. And I'm drinking on a daily basis, and the alcohol isn't working anymore, really. And I couldn't take the beatings no more from my mom's drunken boyfriends, and they would just beat me till I was out cold and full of my own blood, and I couldn't take it anymore. I've been around with the Hells Angels for a couple of years, and I loved those guys back in the early 60s, man. I mean, we could ride Harley Davidsons and we could go to the bar and we could roll the bars and the cops wouldn't screw with us back then, and we could do whatever we wanted, and that was a safe place for a guy like me. And I moved into the president of the Fresno chapter of the Hells Angels that night, and I wanted to be a part of that deal so desperately, and I know this is Alcoholics Anonymous, but they held out their hands and said, take these pills. I was really, really drunk and I desperately wanted to belong. And you don't say, how many do I take or what are they or what will they, you just take all of them. And then you can't get up in the morning, they hold out some white powder and they say, take this, you'll get out of bed. And you take that, and I don't know how you guys drink and do that stuff, but I always overshoot the mark. I'm at work and I'm pulling transmissions out at 13 years old and they rebuild them, I put them back in. And my boss, he drinks and gets loaded. I don't know anybody that doesn't at this time of my life. And I'm starting to go in and out of the juvenile hall systems for the crimes I'm committing. And my boss tells me, man, you must took too much of that white stuff. You're not getting work done. All you're doing is spinning round and round on that creeper. He goes, you better drink something and slow down. And I always overshoot the mark because the next thing I know, he's kicking the creeper and saying, you must have drank too much. All you're doing is sleeping now. He goes, you better take some more of that white stuff. And that started this madness in my life that took me in unbelievable places. Trying to take whatever it took to be able to go to work. And you can't never go to sleep because you might miss something. And my saliva glands don't work for the shit anymore. They've operated on, I don't know, a dozen times. But forgot where I was at. I got two pulling transmissions out, I don't know. Anyways, so I started going in and out of these institutions, and I ended up making it into CYA. And it's like, I hated getting locked up in those kind of places. But, around with Hells Angels, it's like it made you a tougher guy. But, it's really uncool going to juvenile hall and CYA and youth centers and stuff when you're a Hells Angel. That's just really uncool. And because they call your parents even though you don't live at home, and, your parents don't want to have nothing to do with you. You haven't talked to them in years. And how do you explain that to the judge why your parents don't show up? Check at this bar, you might find them. But so my dream was to turn 18 so I could go to jail like tough guys do. And I don't know where it came from. I've written about it a lot. My dream was to turn 21 and die on my 21st birthday. And of course, it has to be glorious, Our book talks about we're grandiose, and that was me to the max, man. It's like my whole life, as far back as I can remember, even as a little kid, I never enjoyed life. I always wanted to be out of this world. It was too tough. It was too hard. I didn't understand, and I just wanted out always. But I thought it would be really neat on my 21st birthday to be on my Harley and robbing this bank, and I come out, and the cops are out there, and the news helicopters are flying around, and I have a shootout with the cops, and I get shot a couple times. You got to get shot a couple times, You get on that Harley Davidson, you make it out to the freeway, and now you're going through county after county, and now they got the national news on it. Several hours later, man, and they're shooting you a couple more times every county you go through. And several hours later on national news, you and that Harley Davidson go end over end and it explodes. And God, you go out in a blaze of glory. It's just going to be awesome, you know. And so, you know, I keep looking at these places I'm getting locked up at in these psychiatric wards for the crimes I'm committing. And I'm thinking, man, you know, I need to make it till I'm 21. I'm never going to make it. You know, because I turned 18, I immediately went to jail for armed robbery and shooting a cop. And sometimes when cops are in the audience, they get pissed off and split when I get to this part of it. But it's not like I like shooting cops. Whatever got in the way of me and drinking was going to go always. And in my lifestyle, cops were always in my way. So a couple times cops got shot. But there was times I pulled a gun on cops, and I wouldn't pull the trigger. I'd wait till they shot me, and then I'd come to out of surgeries, and I'd still be alive. And it's like, dang, what I got to do to die here? You know, like I say, I ended up getting married to. Well, that first girl I married, you know, I got off those first charges because the cops screwed up, and I'm thinking, man, I got a long ways to go till I'm 21, and. You know, back then, someone talked about it. Maybe it was Bill last night. Someone did about back then, if you got someone pregnant, you did the right thing and married them. And that's not a real safe place for a tough guy. But if that's what I got to do to slow this down a little bit, I'll do it. And this girl would, you know, so I get out of jail and I'm engaged to 7 girls. I check with all of them, and because more is better. Anything more is better. And 1 out of the 7 said she was pregnant, and I said, okay, we'll do the right thing. We went up to Reno, and we had an awesome Hell's Angel wedding. We got her drunk and loaded, and she passed out, and so we went out for 3 days and then came back and picked her up at the motel. And she was a little pissed, but and I took her back and dropped her off at home in a short period of time, you know. And you know what, that girl... You know, it seems like people like to take advantage of drunks. I don't know why. And because that girl either lied or I need to go on the World Guinness Book of Records because that kid didn't pop out for 9 months, you know, and 18 months. And that kind of pissed me off, you know, and you know, and that's how I do married, you know. I mean, we're together for a couple months after we get married, maybe, and then, you know, once in a while we'll spend the night together. And that's how that kid came about. And by then I was married to a couple other girls. And you just marry them and you bring them back to Fresno and you just rent another place. And this one lives here and that one lives there. And you make a lot of money. I had a contractor's license I got as soon as I was 18 and doing all the other crimes we do and stuff. You know, I was making tons of money. I couldn't spend as fast as I made it. And so it's no big deal to just start up households all over town. And then I remember, man, you know, I'm in Reno again, and I got this 4th wife, you know, and it's like, dang. And I'm building this shopping center in Modesto, and it's like, man, I don't have time to go rent another house for another wife and stuff. And you know, I need to get back up to that shopping center. I've been gone for a week, and so I thought, dang it, I'll just take her home to my 3rd wife. So I took her home to my 3rd wife, and they weren't getting along real good. And I said, you know what, you guys are going to have to work this out. I can't take this bickering anymore. I got to go out to Modesto and check on my guys up there and see how they're doing. I haven't been up there in a while, and I'll be back in 30 days. You guys work this out or whatever you got to do. And I came back in 30 days, and the 3rd wife was gone, the 4th wife was there. And you know what, I didn't like that 4th wife. But she wouldn't leave. And so I paid my guys, this was like in 1971, somewhere in there, 71, 72. You know, $50 a day was a lot of money for them guys. I paid 3 of my guys $50 a piece, a tire and a recliner, and put the recliner on the flatbed and drop her off on a street corner somewhere, and they did. And I told them to go by and pick my girlfriend up and her 2 kids and move her in, and they did that. And you know, so I was having a few marital problems, and they're suing me and crap, and you know, and I don't go to court. I can't deal with that crap. You know, it's like you soak me for thousands and thousands of dollars. That's okay. I can't do that. I mean, I go to court enough as it is. I'm paying off judges and district attorneys, and you know, I'm keeping even back from 1970 on. I paid this attorney $2,000 a month just on retainer, and then if I used him, which was at least sometimes every day. You know, you shoot a cop and you go out of your house and get on a public street and they just arrest you, you know, so sometimes you go to jail 3 times a day, 7 days a week for 3 times a day. It gets old, you know, it's, after a while you tell them, you know, this game isn't fun anymore, you know. So you keep an attorney on retainer all the time, so his job is to immediately get you out of jail no matter where in the country you live. And he, I mean, where I went to jail, and he loved that, you know. Because like when I'd go to jail in Hawaii or Mexico or something like that, he'd fly his wife out and they'd stay for a couple of weeks at my expense, you know, and that pissed me off. But what are you going to do? You know, you got to get out of jail, right? 7:24 p.m. You know, you guys are probably tired from sitting here all day. And Brian said, you know, try to cut her off about 10 o'clock, so. You know. So it's like, you know, this madness is getting so crazy, and I'm doing all this other stuff, and you know, I just can't manage it anymore. I can't stay out of jail anymore, you know, and you guys did geographics. I never did. I moved to like Mexico and Reno, Nevada, and places like that. It's like that's looking after your own butt. You know, when you got an indictment for you in the state you live in, you just moved to another state. You know, we didn't have computers back then, and you could kind of hide out. And, you know, it always surprised me. I mean, I'd go to a different state or a different country, and I'd be there only a couple of days. I'm in jail already again. It's like, how'd they find out I got here so fast? You know, it never dawned on me till I was sober this time for quite a while that I never did anything different. I drank and I fought and I raised Cain and you know, and I got locked up a lot, and I went to a lot of psychiatric units for the crimes I'm committing and the violence, and I don't know why they wasted so much money on me on these psychiatric units, because it always came out the same diagnosis, that I was incapable of adapting to a society way of life and homicidal. And they just kept sending me back for evaluations over and over and over again, and it just, you know, and I tell them, man, I go, you know what, call this hospital. That's where I was strapped down last. Save you guys some time, and we could just get on with this game. And they got to where they were sending me to the state institutions for the criminally insane. Now those places were really, really cool. They Thorazine you out so bad you don't even know if you're on planet Earth. And they said they were evaluating us. I don't know how that could be. No, observation, that's what it was, observation. I mean, because, you know, and we could smoke in the facilities back then. We couldn't have lighters or matches, but, you know, what we did all day, you know, it was called the Tascadero State Hospital, and right after they built it, I went to, not too much after they built it. When you went from your bed to the day room, and you worked on getting a cigarette in your mouth, right? You know, and sometime during the day you get that baby plopped in your lips, and then you kind of shuffle towards that back wall where they had this round thing like a cigarette lighter in your car, only it was glowing red all the time, indentured in the wall. And then you'd aim for that hole, right, with that cigarette. See how much fun you guys didn't do? And then when you thought you were lined up, you just fell forward. If you miss a hole, you were screwed. You had to go start all over again. But if you made it in the hole, you went and sat back down at the day table, and they had us. They kept us so Thorazined out so we couldn't fight or raise Cain or anything. But we were there for observation, and there wasn't nothing really to observe. You know, it's like, so you'd sit there back at the day table looking at that cigarette like this. You couldn't suck on it or nothing. You just let it burn. and the ashes would fall down and get to the butt, and the cherry would fall down, and when it quit burning, you just get up and go to bed. It took all day just to do that. And, so I went through that observation there. 4.5 months later, they came up with the same diagnosis, and it's like they wasted a lot of money. You know, and over the next years, I just kept doing the same thing over and over and over and over, going in and out of institutions, going to Alcoholics Anonymous. Check this out. Someone else was talking about that hard decision to go to AA too. I don't remember, but when I was 23 years old, I went before the judge, and I'd already been to the penitentiary, and you know, I went to penitentiary because I found an abandoned armored truck, and I know it was abandoned because it was running and nobody was in it. And I was AWOL from the service, and I needed some wheels to get home, and you know, they put me in the penitentiary for that crap, and they just didn't understand. But you know, when I'm 23 years old, you know, so I'm before the judge, and he goes, you know what, I'm going to send you back to penitentiary for 2 years, or you have to go to AA 5 days a week for a year. And I couldn't make my mind up. And so he gave me 5 more days in jail to make my mind up. Like, that was a tough decision, you know. I didn't make my mind up till that 5th day before I went to the judge. I said, I'll try that AA crap. And, you know, my first meeting, I made the mistake of getting there early, and I couldn't go where I lived. I had to go to Skid Row place. And, you know, I don't think a car in that parking lot could have left. And I got there really early, and you know, I drove a brand new Corvette. I didn't even have the license plates for it yet. I wore my Hell's Angel colors, so you knew who I was. And these old parts I mean, these guys were really, really old in this Skid Row club. I mean, they were all over like 40 years and older, you know. And I passed that up a long time ago. But you know, and they would tell me stupid. I mean, we went over the doctor's opinion. They go, do you agree with that? And I go, yeah, absolutely, 100%. They say, well, all you got to do is stay here. And I go, you know what? If I was as old as you and my car wouldn't leave the parking lot, I'd stay here too. I go, but I got things happening, you know. And I mean, I didn't tell them, you know, I desperately want to die. I just told them I got things happening. Man, I can't stay here. And I ended up staying sober. I took a year trip. I made it 10.5 months. I figured that was close enough. But back then, they only test us for drinking. They didn't test us for that other stuff we're not supposed to talk about up here. And so you take that and not drink, and you could pass, you know, when you got sucked in, and they gave you the test, you could pass it. You know, I just kept doing that, in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, I would come up with ideas. You know, like one time, it's like, you know, I told them I demand the right that I go to A meeting every day, every night, but after the A meeting, I have the right to go to the bar and shoot pool with my Hells Angel buddies and drink sodas. And they told me they didn't think that was a good idea, and I told them, you know, if I was old as you guys, I'd go home and just go to bed myself. But I always had to be in the, you know, God, what if your next mother, your next children would have been there, and you were standing around an A meeting half hour later, mystery, you know, God, that would be disgusting. So I'd go to the A meeting every night, and I'd go to the bar and shoot pool, and I did that for 11 months. I didn't take none of that other stuff that time either. I was actually really sober. And this blondes always get me in trouble. I forget who I was telling, Joe, I think. I mean, it sounds like I've never, you know, half my wives were brunettes, but the blondes really get me in trouble. They talk me into crap I don't really want to do. And this blonde wanted to play a game of pool for a drink. And this is going to be the mother of my next children. She's going to be my 5th wife. And she don't know none of it yet, but this is how it's going to come down. And so I played her for a drink, and of course I won. And you know, this is going to be the next mother of my children, so I got to drink the drink and be sociable. And I drank that drink, and I didn't know that phenomenal craving took over. And I don't even know what happened to that blonde girl. I never seen her ever again. You know, when I take a drink, I mean, I knew it was on. And I knew, You know, I might come home tonight, or it might be a month from now. I don't know. And I knew that. But you see, it didn't matter, man, you know, because I just need to tear it up. I need to make as many people pay till I die. You know, I wasn't able to die, and I'm going in and out of these institutions. I'm getting shot and can't die. I heard if you slit your wrist both ways, that works. I did that. I mean, my arm's really scarred up from it. And, you know, God always, you know, I never believed in God ever until I got sober this time. But God always, I know today God always put someone in the right place where I always lived. And, you know, I'm married to my 7th wife and been going to AA for 10 years. And we had another child, and, you know, I had the ranch and the new Lincolns and the Harley Davidsons and all that. And you know what, I wanted to die desperately. And I'm really pissed that I can't die. And you know, you just marry another girl and another kid, and then, you know, the cows and the pigs and the horses and all, you know, just to try to look like everything's okay. And when I run her off one more time, she won't come back. And when I want her to come back, and I think I'm not going to let another wife do this. You know, I'd been up on about a week-long run, and I grabbed a shotgun. I went over to her apartment. I stopped at 7-Eleven. I bought 2 bottles of champagne, celebrating. I'm going to blow her head off. I'm going to take that baby and I'm going to run. I'm not going to let another woman do this to me, you see, because I can't see my other kids. Because the judges said scumbags like me shouldn't be allowed to be around children because of all my violent crimes and the guns. And today I know those judges were right, but it really pissed me off. You know, I mean, you know, any child doesn't need to be with cops raiding the house and shooting the front door off the hinges. But I thought they were picking on me, and so I'm going to grab this baby after I blow her head off, and I'm going to run. And I get over there, and she's not home, and her neighbors were there, and they knew I'd been in and out of institutions, and it just don't matter. I kicked the door in. I'm in there drinking this stuff and taking stuff and waiting for her to come home, and the SWAT team shows up, of course, one more time. It's like, I don't know what changed this time. It's like I couldn't go out and shoot another cop. I'm a tough guy, so I can't go out and say, hey, I give up. I can't do that either. I mean, how would that look on the news? The news cameras were out there and stuff. I mean, I couldn't do that. And you know, it just came to me. My eldest kid had got a hold of me a couple days before that and goes, can't you just disappear or die or something? He goes, I'm so embarrassed of you. My friend seen you on TV for all the crimes you're always wanted for. And he goes, can't you just disappear? And I get to thinking, man, you know what? My children would be better off without me in this world. And I can't go out there and give up, and I can't shoot a cop. So I pulled that shotgun to my head and I pulled the trigger. And when I came to out of that coma months and months and months later, I'm strapped to a bed. I didn't have no face. I mean, all this is all new. I didn't have no cheekbones, no nothing. You could stick your fist inside my head. I was strapped with leather restraints, every part of my body that would move. I was all the way blind, and I'm still most of the way blind. This is just a big blur out here. You guys have really good-looking women here in Indianapolis. No, the women I met are absolutely beautiful. Sister Ruth, she's such a trip, man. I loved her. I thought she did a magnificent job. I was on life support systems, and the doctors came in on a daily basis and told me, boy, there's nothing we can do for you. You're going to die. And that's where I got introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous again. In Northern California, we call it the Hospital and Institution Committee, which is really, really huge. It's the hugest committee. It actually got started before General Service. The first institution meeting was in San Quentin Prison by Warden Duffy. And as a matter of fact, they gave the big book in Toronto to the warden of San Quentin Prison for all the years of having Alcoholics Anonymous in that prison. And I'm strapped to this bed. I can't see. I can't wiggle my head. I can't. I have this plate that pops in my head. If I take it out now, I still can't talk. I didn't have one then. And these people from Alcoholics Anonymous would come up on my door, and they come in and say, hey, can we read you the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous? Like I got a choice in this matter, you know. And they sit down and start reading me this friggin' book, you know, and they take shifts all day long till late in the night, read me this book. And so desperately I want to tell them, you know what, I'm an alcoholic, and you know, I'm an alcoholic of the hopeless variety, just like the book says. You know, I have this allergy of the body, the obsession of mind, the phenomenon craving takes over when I put alcohol in my system, and you know, I'm just insane. I'm insane. I'm more insane not drinking than I am when I'm drinking. It just, you know, it doesn't work anymore, but I can't go with not taking a drink. And I want to tell them this so desperately, but I can't say nothing. And you keep reading that friggin' book to me. And you know what, when they leave, you know, like 10 o'clock at night, you know, they brought a tape deck in there and all these stack of tapes, and they put a tape on for me. They say, you want to listen to AA tape? Like I could wiggle my head and say no, you know, so they put the tape on, these friggin' AA speakers. And the first one they put on, I don't know if you ever heard that Bob Earl, the vulture on the headboard. If you've never heard that, you need to get. He talks about how we think, you know, and we're sober a little while, and if you're wondering why you're nuts and you're like 3 months sober in AA, it's like our mind's this vulture on the headboard. And I related so much because, you know, I'd wake up and that my mind just, you know, it just won't shut up, you know. And this vulture says, oh, you're pretty tired. You better not go to work. As tired as you are, you'd get fired if you did go to work. So you do a quick accounting of how much money you got in the bank, and you got enough to last 4 weeks, so now you're lost your job and you're bankrupt and you've been awake a total of 13 seconds, you know. And you know, I related that kind of stuff. I mean, that's not the whole story, but, you know, and those nurses thought I really enjoyed these tapes, right? So when they would end and they come in and take my temperature and your pulse and all that, they would put another tape in all night long. I had to listen to this AA shit all night long, man. And then they come in the morning, knock on my door again, ask if they could read me the book. You know, how's it going? It's like, oh man, this is real fun. I can't sleep. I got to listen to that A shit all night. You guys are here bugging me all day. And you know, I did that for a lot of months, strapped to that bed. And I'd like to tell you, you know, they would loosen my hand a little bit, and when my family would be there, I'd write that, you know what, this scared me bad enough. I'll never take another drink or a drug as long as I live. And I meant with every fiber of my body, man, I was done. And, you know, all those months later when I got out, me and that seventh wife went back together, and that first night she wanted to do a little bit of that non-habit forming cocaine and have a drink. And I said if it was just a little bit, I would do that with her. And the first night out of the hospital, I'm drinking and using. I'm off and running again. You know, and that phenomenon of craving takes over, and I can't stop. You know, I'm going to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and for the next 2 years, I did the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous for the next 2 years. I went to a lot of meetings, and they'd say, Matt, want to go to the coffee shop? And it's like, man, I hurt so bad I can't. I got to go lay down. They say, well, okay, we'll pick you up for the next meeting. It's like, damn. I mean, I moved clear out by the lake, so they wouldn't come pick me up anymore. And all they did was show up earlier then, you know. It's, You know, if you're new here, you know how they bug you? They come up and ask you, you know, how you doing? And you say, oh, wonderful, like you're lying like shit too, you know. But you know, this AA stuff's really great, and inside you really want to die. You can't say how you're feeling around here. They say you got a sponsor, and you're no, and they, oh man, you ain't gonna make it, you know. Oh God, you know, they make you feel worse than you already do. So you go ask somebody finally to be your sponsor, you know. He says, yeah, here, give me a call. Go home and read this. Now they come up to you and say, you know, you quit going to those meetings so you don't see that guy no more, though. And you don't call him, but they come up and say, Matt, you got a sponsor? And you say, yeah. And they go, who is it? And you tell them, oh, it's Barry. They pat you on the back and they go, God, Matt, you're going to make it now. Inside you really want to die desperately. You know, if they would have took that a little further and said, do you ever call him? I'd been screwed. So if you do that, maybe you might ask them, do you ever call them? You know, I did that for 2 years. And I drank 4 times, you know. I would never drink before a meeting, only afterwards. You have to look like everything's okay no matter what. you might want to die more than you ever have. You're sober and not drinking in Alcoholics Anonymous, going to 3 to 5 meetings, doing the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. But you got to look like everything's okay. I don't want people to know I'm blind. Like, that worked really good. Back then I had a gauze pad went all the way across my face. Tubes sticking out of it. If you sat across the meeting from me, there was these clear tubes. I had suction balls and it sucked fluids out my head 24 hours a day. And if you sat across from me at the table, you had to watch that fluid being sucked out. And if you'd share about being afraid or something, I think someone told them about me, it pissed me off. I'd take my coffee and throw it on you, or it sounded like you were down the table 2 or 3 seats. I'd turn the whole table over on you. And they say, Matt, you got to do something about that anger issue. And it's like, it's no problem for me. I did that crap for 2 years, man. I drank that 4 times. And the last time was on January 25th, 1987. I'm saving up all my pills for my surgeries because there's a day this AA crap isn't going to work. I know that. I've been in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous for a lot of years. And so that night, I got 2.5 gallons of really good vodka. It was I think at that time, $4.15 for a half gallon of that Ernie's brand vodka, the plastic fists, or half gallons. And I took 455 synthetic morphine tablets. I knew that would work. And when I came to out of that coma, I was really, really pissed. It's like, I'm not just crying for help a little bit. I desperately want to die. It's like, what I got to do to die? And all that crap I heard in AA for 12 years now have been running through my head. It was like like that Star Wars movie. It just ran fast. And finally, I was so weak I couldn't stand up, and I puked pills up all over, and it would just and all my smelling senses are blown away. It must have smelled really bad. My roommates just that was a normal thing. If someone goes out and don't come out of the room for 3 or 4 or 5 days, no big deal. It came to me that, why don't you pray to God? And I thought, you know what, you don't believe in God, so how am I going to do that? And just like it came to my head, do the best you can. And I rolled out and I got on my knees, and it was a cussing prayer. I never prayed before in my life. I never believed in anything of a God. I lived my whole life telling you how weak you were if you believed in some form of God or religion or whatever. And I would hold the gun to your head and make you pray to me that there wasn't no God, that I was the God. And that cussing prayer that I did that morning on my knees, I believe that God understood it was the best I could do at the time. I believe that with the bottom of my heart. And I don't pray that way today, but at the time it was the best I could do. And it was basically, I can't do it anymore. Whatever you and Alcoholics Anonymous wants me to do, I'll do it. And I went to that meeting that day. I told the old timers what happened. I said, what do you want me to do? And they call me boy all the time. And when you're a Hell's Angel, that boy shit, it sucks. And they told me, boy, go out and pick up the cigarette butts. And I said, I ain't doing it. They said, we thought you made a deal with God and to us that you would do whatever we told you to do. And I said, well, this is going to be a circus act, man. You got the blind guy out picking up the cigarette butts. You're all going to run to the window and watch and shit. And he said, well, you said you would do whatever. And it's like, okay. So for a little over 22 years, God hasn't sent me a message or a fax or nothing or a meditation to quit picking up cigarette butts. So I still pick up cigarette butts after 22 years because it works. A lot of people, I hear that a lot of times. It's so awesome to see Harry here with 51 years and he's still here. I thanked him for being here. A lot of people get their lives together and don't need to go to AA or anymore. Or they'll show up once a year to get their chip, or they want to leave that service work for the newcomer to do. And it's like, what, I want to stay sober as much as a newcomer. The guy here with one day, what, if you or me got to get drunk, I hope it's you, buddy. I hope you don't, but you're going to have to do what we do, and you got to continue to do it on a regular basis, like it or not. I mean, there's a million times I don't want to go to the friggin' jail. At 5 days sober, they told me, boy, we need you to go to jail. The means aren't being covered. I said, I ain't doing it. He said, boy, you said you would do anything. And it's like, a lot of times I would do it so they quit calling me that boy shit, But so I went to the jail, and so that was a little over 22 years, and I still go to jail. They said they made me go every week because it wasn't being covered. I said I'd go for a year, and that's it, no more. It's been over 22 years. I still, every time I walk through that last locked up door, coming back out that it's my choice, I mean, I get like these God bumps all over me. It's just absolutely awesome. God hasn't sent me a fax and said, hey, you know what, it seems like when we're getting a few extra too many guys for the jail, they open a new jail and add a bunch more floors. And we need, like on Thursday nights, we need like about, I don't know, 75, 80 guys to cover the jails we have. And that's not counting all the penitentiaries. In Fresno has a lot of farmland, and we got a lot of mountains, Yosemite's right there, and the giant redwoods are right there, but the whole valley's farming. And California started building these prisons out in all this farmland out in the middle of nowhere, so if they escape, they got to go, there's no highways or freeways around them. They're just little country roads going out there. And so we started the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. I got to participate in that for a lot of years, starting the meetings in the prisons. And after 12 years of that, the state changed their policy, and now I'm too high of a risk to go in. And at first it pissed me off, because I enjoyed doing that. And my sponsor would tell me, when God takes away something you're doing in Alcoholics Anonymous, he's got a plan for you to do something else. And that's always been true for me. I've always kept Alcoholics Anonymous my primary purpose, no matter what. Through the men's steps, amazing things can happen. If you're new and they're going to tell you here, keep coming back, it'll get better. I'll tell you what my first year was like. I got indicted for income tax evasion for over $500,000. That seventh wife I went back with, she changed the locks on the door when I was going to a new meeting and moved her boyfriend in same time. It was my place, but I had emergency back surgery that first year. I got indicted for murder that first year. I remember after I got indicted for murder and having to go before the grand jury, I went back and told my aide, I go, if this shit gets any better, I don't know if I can take it. But the thing is, one day at a time, my sponsor was so much on me about that one day at a time. And, and the meditation. And I made the mistake of getting a sponsor that didn't work. When I got him as my sponsor, he was off. And my place was in between our home group and his house. So he would just come by my house every morning. And when you're new, you know how when you wake up, you've got a lot of things to figure out and think about. And he would come by and want to go out and pray on my front porch. And he'd want to listen to the sounds of God. And I tell him, man, I got a lot of shit to do. And he goes, like, what? It's like, well, I got to figure this crap out, And we'd get out there and we'd talk about being in the moment. And he'd make me, being all the way blind, he'd tell me, what kind of car is that driving down the street? And it's like, damn, I'm blind. How the heck would I know? And you know what? We got to where I could tell him what kind of car was driving down the street. I had this little boy in diapers, and it's like, well, why do I get stuck taking care of this kid? And I can't run around like everybody else. I got all these service commitments. I've never gone a day of sobriety without a service commitment. And I ended up getting 100% custody of that little boy, this Hell's Angel convict piece of crap. I got 100% custody, and my sponsor kept telling me it's because you learned here in Alcoholics Anonymous to keep this your primary purpose and to do the right thing, and good things happen. And life's going to go on. My parents died. I made amends with my parents, and we had an awesome relationship. I didn't make amends to them for all the crap they did to me and the beatings I took. I made amends for the part I took as a son in their lives. And we ended up having, my mom ended up getting sober, taking me to meetings, and she died sober. She didn't work the steps. She was really miserable. She got involved in service, and that's not the kind of sobriety. That's what I don't want to stay sober to live like my mother did. She was absolutely miserable. I got married in sobriety. I knew it was wrong. I did it anyways. 10 years sober. She was a really good friend of mine. She was in Al-Anon. We were on a lot of conference committees together, and I even told my sponsor outside the wedding chapel, this isn't right. And he goes, well, you don't have to go through with it. And I told him, man, you don't understand. I'm just a big shot circuit speaker. I can make it work. And that ended up being the worst friggin' divorce out of all 8 of them. I made it work really good. Now, that time I'm done with women. That divorce took 5 years, but after we filed for divorce, it's like I love my life. I love running all over the country like I do. My kids are growing. I got grandkids. I sponsor a ton of guys all over the country. I mean, you know what? I don't have time for a relationship. I'm done. I'm through. I'm just going to finish out however long God wants me to live in the rest of this world doing what I do. It's absolutely perfect. I was speaking up north, and I was being a smart ass once in a while, saying I was accepting resumes from my 9th ex-wife when I was speaking. And, this little tiny 98-pound blonde, of course, long blonde girl, this little tiny 5-foot-tall girl came up, and she goes, man, I have a resume for you. And we ended up going to dinner that night, not together, but I went with some guys, and she went with some of her girls, and one of her sponsors was celebrating a year of sobriety. And we ended up at the same restaurant, and she became the absolute love of my life. I didn't know love could be that way. It sounds funny being married 8 times, but I always just accepted that's what love is. It's just going to suck. You fight, you argue, you stay gone. The kid pops out every now and then. You pay a lot of money, and we call that crap love, And I met this girl. I absolutely felt madly in love. I started to know what the words in the songs meant. I thought those songs, that was BS. I thought that was imaginary. It couldn't be that way. And so the people that watch those love movies, they're stupid because that's not how real life is. And you know what? I know that it's true today. And we had the most awesome relationship. It was a long-distance relationship. She was 3 hours away from where I lived, and she was absolutely involved in a ton of service like me and stayed real active in Alcoholics Anonymous. And we're running all over the country together and doing things. And it was the most amazing thing in my life. And we would go to places like we went one time. I wasn't speaking Thanksgiving weekend. We went to the Las Vegas Roundup. And we went to check in, and the girl goes, you guys are newlyweds, aren't you? And we go, no. And she goes, you guys look so much in love. She gave us a conference rate for the hotel, and she gave us a honeymoon penthouse suite for the same price for a week. It was just absolutely beyond my wildest dreams. And I thought, this is where God wants me to be. And we even talked about when I died, how hard this was going to be on her. And 9 months ago she died. She went in for a doctor's visit, and 5 days later she was dead. And it really bothered me. I had commitments out of state, and I wanted to run on those commitments, and I wanted to run to the hospital. And I talked to some old timers, and they told me, you know what, that God had me right where I was supposed to be. That would work out. And the day of her funeral, I was out of town speaking at another conference, and I don't know, our family put it together that quick, and it kind of ticked me off at first, and then I got to thinking, it's about her kids, it's not about me. And I was just, I was talking to an old timer up in that town I was in, and I go, I'm just really amazed, a scumbag like me, and what you've taught me, that I can stop and not think about me, I can think about those children, and that's about those children, not about me. I didn't like it, but that's just the way it was, and what I did was, the last 9 months, I've just gotten busier in Alcoholics Anonymous. It just seems like, so it's like that relationship is over, that divorce finally got over, and Financially, I'm screwed more than I've ever been in my life. I just filed for bankruptcy and, probably about ready to lose my house in foreclosure because of the economy. And I guess Brian thinks it's funnier and shit. I told him I've done so many stupid things even in sobriety. Like my sponsor says my sober log is crazy as my drunken log. And like a year and a half ago, I'm out cutting wood with a chainsaw. Like a blind guy needs to be cutting with a chainsaw, right? I don't know if you can see, but see where this finger is way shorter? I whacked that baby up with a chainsaw right at the knuckle a year and a half ago. And, at least I was wearing gloves, so the finger was still there, and... And I was just cutting wood Wednesday before I flew up here, too. Everybody goes, man, you better not cut nothing off. You don't have time to go have it stitched back on, every part of my body has been re-sewn back on, and muscles moved and grafted and bones grafted and wires and pins. And there's only one part of me left in original shape, and I think about that on a daily basis. If I don't continue to work these steps and be active in Alcoholics Anonymous, I might lose that sucker too, and I like that thing being the original part, even though nothing else is, and that's not true. I stay active in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's true, I'm full of scar tissue and everything's been moved around, but I stay active in Alcoholics Anonymous because, I love alcoholics. Every day I wake up, I love AA more and more every day. I love AA more now after 22 years than I ever have in my whole life. There's a lot of things, my child that I got custody of almost died from a surgery in sobriety. But good things happen. You find kids you don't know about, and you have a relationship with them, and they get married, and they ask you to walk them down the aisle, and God, you're just beaming, you're this big shot in AA, and you go to the penitentiary, you tell these guys, yeah, my daughter's going to have me walk down the aisle. I found her in sobriety, it's just awesome. And the next day your daughter calls and said, it's customary for the father to pay for the wedding. And it's like, shit. And you start crying, and your daughter says, Dad, you don't have to do it. And you tell her, honey, man, you know what? It's a blessing I don't deserve, but I'd love to do it. And your youngest child graduates from high school, and he goes, Dad, all my buddies are going to Hawaii for graduation. Could I go to Hawaii for graduation? And it's like, damn. I was locked up at my graduation time. I ain't gonna go to no dang Hawaii. And I ended up doing a job. I told him, that times were hard right then, and I'd see what I could do. And you know what? I ended up doing a job by the time that trip had to be paid for, and I had just to the penny enough to pay for his trip to Hawaii. Every time something was bad that I thought was the end, God's always pulled through. And so what I've done since Lori died and the economy sank, and I owe 110 grand more on my house than it's even worth now, and I show up to more meetings. I'm taking more people through the steps now than I've ever taken through the steps. I've always made at least 5 calls. In the last 9 months, I make at least 10 calls a day. When the going gets tough in my life, I get going more in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's how I stay sober. That's how I have serenity in my life. That's how I love getting up every morning. That's why I don't have to get up depressed over what's going on in my life. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I love God. I love you guys so much. You guys right now are saving my life. You're doing more for me having me here than I'm doing for you. I'm absolutely sure of that. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and God bless you.